Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my One Piece video review journey. I guess we're calling it that. Today we're going to be talking about the Syrup Village arc, but before we go any further, let me just say really quickly, thank you. Thank you very much for all the support, all the comments, the vast majority of comments and feedback and tweets and DMs, everything related to my first video, my first One Piece review video. The vast majority of them were extremely complimentary, extremely supportive, very enthusiastic, sharing nice little interesting tidbits about Oda or One Piece or just advice, and I appreciate all of it. Thank you very much. I had surprisingly very few negative comments, and I didn't expect that. So just thank you. You guys, whether it be in the Twitch chat as I read through these live, or whether it be in the YouTube comments in response to these reviews, you guys make this experience, the community makes the experience even better than it would be otherwise, so thank you very much for that. Now, just to get this out of the way, a little bit of housekeeping, if you do want to support these One Piece videos, specifically the One Piece videos, the best way to do that is to comment, share your thoughts, like the video, get the word out there, share it around. I got a pretty good response, like I said, to the first one, and it was a joy to go through a lot of those comments and see all the enthusiasm. So all of that with regards to the YouTube videos, if you'd like to, you can come out to the Twitch streams. For anyone who doesn't know, every single chapter I read live on stream, as I talked about in the last video. So we do those on Sundays, every Sunday. We might switch in an extra day here or there, maybe a Friday, we'll see, but every Sunday for sure. I go through a number of One Piece chapters and react to it live and read it live and discuss it, and it's always a great time. So you can come out to that if you're interested. I will always be updating about maybe extra days I might do that on my Twitter, so all my socials are below, my Twitch, Twitter, and all that. But the most important thing I want to get out there is that I'm now doing early access Patreon videos. So basically, if you're seeing this uploaded public to YouTube, right now, you can go see my next video, my next review, reaction, whatever, to the next arc. I just want, I've always struggled a little bit with giving my patrons something exclusive. Now I'm glad that I have a little bit of something extra to offer them. So they have one video advance, just for the $5 tier. If you're a $5 patron, you can get early access to the next arc. So if you'd like to splurge $5 US, you can head over to my Patreon after this video and check out my reaction to the next arc, because that's available right now if you're watching this public on YouTube. And just a couple more housekeeping things. Sorry for this longer introduction, but just these earlier videos in the series, I do want to establish a few foundations, so hopefully the intros and further videos down the line won't be super long. Or maybe they will, because I'm actually adding a little bit of a feature to these videos. If you use the hashtag, or if you comment, and within your comment you use the hashtag AJPiece, it's on screen right now. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's a little cringe, but, you know, I'm not very creative, and it's easy to find that hashtag. So if you comment with that hashtag, you will be entering yourself into a pool of comments, 3 to 5 of which, somewhere between 3 and 5 comments, will be highlighted in the next video. You can say whatever you want in these comments. I think the most beneficial or most popular thing would be to point out things that you noticed thematically about the characters, about the plot, the story, maybe that I missed, or something that I didn't mention, or something that you love about the arc, anything like that. But it can be anything. It can be a joke, it can be something about the Twitch streams if you were out there, anything for me to comment on, because 3 to 5 of those comments that use that hashtag will be highlighted, and I will be responding to them in the next video. I have a few mods. I have three mods that check the comments regularly to make sure that I don't check any spoilers, and they will hand select the best ones that are spoiler free and give insight or are valuable in some way for me to read blind at the beginning of the next video and react to them. So I think it's just a cool little interactive community thing to add to these videos. So if you're interested, again, just include hashtag AJPiece in your comments. And again, not up to me which comments are chosen, and please just bear in mind that not every single one can be chosen. Like I said, just a small handful. But if you're interested, go ahead and do that. I would appreciate it. And the last thing, I just want to reiterate, like I said last video, I will not be making any video essays on One Piece. No video essays at all, copyright issue, Toei, whether it be manga panels or the anime clips, I'm not going to include any of these. I would just rather play it safe. And I know there have been a lot of people who've been telling me, oh, you know, you say this now, but wait until you get far into the masterful arcs, you're just going to have to make videos about them. Please don't expect any video essays that I usually make on One Piece. I'm just reiterating this. I'm not going to do them. It's not a matter of how much I enjoy the series, it's just I'm not willing to put my channel at risk. I'm just going to err on the side of caution. Hopefully you guys understand that. You know, it's not like I'm going to ignore themes or characters. If I find something really interesting, I will talk about it in these videos, just in a more casual stream of consciousness way. And to be honest, when it comes to One Piece, it's a nice change of pace to talk about it in this way. I actually enjoy this more. I enjoy changing things up, being more natural, less scripted, more stream of consciousness, and just getting my thoughts out there in a more casual way. You know, it might not be the most concise thing in the world, it might not be the most articulate or beautifully worded thing in the world, but this is how I prefer to actually get my thoughts out there about One Piece. So hopefully you guys enjoy that too. There aren't going to be any video essays, but they will be many of these videos as long as I continue with One Piece, which, a bit of a spoiler alert for the video, I'm having tons of fun. I can't see myself stopping anytime soon. That's all of the housekeeping out of the way. Now to get into the actual story. One thing that I saw in comments here and there of the last video is that people were saying that a little bit of a stylistic or characterization-based choice that Oda goes with is that Luffy does not have thought bubbles. Luffy does not internalize very much. And that's a bit of indirect characterization, I guess you could say, because he's just so straightforward, honest, and raw. Everything he feels and everything he wants to express, he expresses through either words, very simply through words, or expressions, facial expressions, whether they be more low-key or very expressive, very over-the-top and louder expressions. So I just really love that. I think that's so cool that a character is approached that way. It's just a really interesting way to show that this guy is what he is. He is so straightforward and honest that what you see is what you get with him. No thought bubbles at all. So I don't know if that's going to continue for the rest of the series or if that was just something for early One Piece. I'm not exactly sure. Either way, thank you for everyone who pointed that out because I didn't really clock that, and it's really cool. Now to get into Syrup Village arc proper, I actually got a lot of comments in the last video because I asked in the last video, please give me suggestions for good stopping points. You know, should it be after every arc? Should it be after every 2 arcs? What do you guys suggest? You guys are the experts. I got a lot of people saying, you know, you should read maybe the next 2 arcs, maybe the next 3 arcs. Some were saying stop at chapter 100 and give your thoughts for that. I very much appreciate all the feedback, but after reading this arc, there was plenty of substance in here to talk about in a full video. It would have been way too bloated if I did Syrup Village and the next arc as well. So yeah, I had to stop after Syrup Village to talk about what happened there. There is actually, what was interesting to me is that there were a lot of people kind of downplaying Syrup Village. People saying it's the weakest arc, it's not very good, you probably won't enjoy it much. It's the low point of One Piece. Syrup Village is what a lot of people were telling me in comments, in tweets, on Twitch, in chat. There was a lot of downplaying of Syrup Village. And just for anyone who's curious, personally, I am someone who is not affected by expectations. If people hype up an anime, if they say it's the next Hunter x Hunter, it's the next whatever, it's an 11 out of 10, and I haven't seen it, I don't really put my trust into that just because everyone's different, everything's subjective. I agree with the popular opinion a lot, but there are also lots of times where my opinion just don't line up with the popular opinion. So I made the active decision a few years ago to just ignore hype or ignore downplaying. If people tell me something is bad, okay, take that in, respect it, obviously, and understand and maybe listen to them or listen to reasons why people think that, but don't let it affect my own expectations. Just keep everything on an even keel. Keep hopes high, expectations tempered. That way, if I watch a 8 out of 10 anime or something, I won't be disappointed if everyone else thought it was a 10 out of 10. So that's just the way I think about it. The point I'm trying to make is that people told me to keep my expectations low because Syrup Village isn't very good. And I was actually, I thought kind of the opposite. I thought that Syrup Village was more or less on par with everything I've read so far. And honestly, when all was said and done, the last couple of chapters elevated it such that I thought Syrup Village was actually the best arc so far, which, from what I gather, is kinda unpopular? Not sure. Regardless, I thought it was very solid. It was my favorite arc so far. It was great. We're gonna dive into specifics in just a second, but yeah, I had a great time with Syrup Village. It might be what I like to call the Greed Island effect. If you are a Hunter x Hunter fan, you know what I'm talking about, where an arc that is very good, very solid in its own right, is just maybe downplayed by a vocal minority of the community just because in comparison to the best stuff that the series has to offer, it's not as good, despite being good in its own right. I don't know. My point is that I enjoyed Syrup Village a great deal. And what's great is that as people were reading along with me, I'd read a chapter and then go, wow, this is really interesting, this character piece, this theme that they're tackling here. And we talk about it, we discuss, and then we progress and keep reading more. What was really great is that a lot of One Piece fans who were reading along with me and discussing along with me were saying that the live streams going through it really reinvigorated their love for Syrup Village, or made them realize things that they hadn't thought of in the first place. And they really enjoyed it more than they did the first time around. And that's great. That's just awesome to hear. But as for my experience, Syrup Village was utterly substantial, very solid, did a lot of things really well, and I definitely had to make a video right after it. If you can't tell, I'm taking my time with the series. That slow pace might be a bit frustrating for people because they want me to get to some of the later stuff. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be taking this at my own pace, which is like this. If I finish a 20-chapter arc, I am more than likely going to make a video about it right after this, because there's more than likely going to be lots of things to talk about, like there are here. So yeah, hopefully you're okay with me going at this leisurely pace. I'm definitely taking my time. I'm just savoring the journey, the detours, if you will. That's just how I like to go about it. Hopefully that's okay with you guys. Now, just a couple of stray thoughts before getting into the meat and potatoes. I'm not going to talk about these characters as much, Zoro and Nami, because they play a notable role, but I just don't have too much to say about what happened here. But I do think it's notable to talk about how Zoro sacrifices his body to prevent Usopp and Nami, we're going to be talking about Usopp for sure, from getting into harm's way, where he just acts as a human shield for them. Firstly, I talked in the last video about how there's clearly a immediate kinship between Zoro and Luffy. They both greatly respect honesty, principles, conviction, protecting one's treasure, whether that be an abstract treasure or a literal thing. Whatever it may be, they're very much cut from the same cloth ideologically, and so they, almost non-verbally, almost instinctually in a lot of ways, just understand each other and just immediately bonded right away. Now, Zoro, we're going to get more into Usopp like I said, but Zoro saw something similar in Usopp, I think. Usopp also fixates greatly on protecting his treasure, which would be his village, the people he cares about, etc. I think Zoro saw that, and that immediately adhered him to Usopp, which caused him to want to protect him. I'm simplifying it, but hopefully you get what I mean. So there's another bit of kinship ideologically. However, Nami is a bit of a different case. Nami doesn't quite fit into that. There are more indirect ways in which you could say the treasure thing applies to her, but she is different from the rest of them in that sense. There isn't this immediate sense of kinship. They aren't kindred spirits, at least not right away. And yet, Zoro goes out on a limb to protect her as well. And Nami reciprocates that appreciation with helping him get his swords back and assisting him in a lot of different ways and verbalizing her appreciation for him. So what I'm trying to get at here is that there's a gradual sort of bonding between Nami and Zoro, Nami and Luffy, just Nami with the crew in general, because she's set back a little bit. She doesn't have that ideological leg up in seeing the world the same way they do, at least not at the moment. So you have to gradually build that relationship in a more natural way. Well, maybe not more natural, maybe a more gradual way. And that is happening. That's happening in Syrup Village. There are nice little lines throughout that show you that Nami is ingratiating herself with the crew, getting more of a relationship with Zoro, getting closer to Luffy, etc. So I just think that's a nice little bit of keeping Nami in mind with her not being the focus of the arc. It's just progressing her nicely, so I thought I'd mention it. And one more little note that I really liked throughout the arc is that people were telling me to pay attention to some of the covers for some of the issues, or for some of the chapters, where Oda likes to drop in some pictures that tell stories of what's happening, bits of continuity outside of the immediate plot that we're covering with the arc. So there was a picture of some hijinks with Buggy on some island, chasing down some birds and then being hunted by birds and getting into all sorts of hijinks, his crew doing the same thing as well. So it's just cool. It's just cool that Oda is able to efficiently show us that this is a living, breathing world with immense scale, and things are happening outside of immediately what's in the panels. And doing that through cover art, they're showing what's going on with these side characters that we saw before, but are not a part of the story now. That's just a really efficient and natural and organic way to make this a living, breathing world and story with natural scope to it. So I really appreciated that. It was really cool. But yeah, in terms of the actual story, we get introduced gradually into Syrup Village, this new village, this new settlement that our crew encounter. I like the way that it's introduced. It's kind of front-loaded, but it also details are gradually filled in. We see how the town functions. We see Usopp pretty quickly. We see Usopp, who is the classic boy who cried wolf. His characterization is very loud, very boisterous, telling tall tales, talking about how pirates might be invading, and people just going, what the hell is this guy on about? Whatever, I'm sick of Usopp, what a pain in the neck, whatever. And so that front loads his characterization nicely for, again, like I've talked about before, the details to then fill in. That seems to be how Oda likes to characterize a lot of his characters, which I'm a big fan of. But yeah, we then quickly get an emotional hook with Usopp, with how he applies those tall tales, those exaggerations, those stories to Kaya, who is bedridden, who is sick, who can't be active like everyone else can, and can only really see the world from outside her room. She can rarely ever go outside. And so Usopp has taken it upon himself to tell her stories and to share stories and adventures, and whether they be truth or lies, just to share these stories with her, to brighten up her day, to make her laugh, make her get emotional, engage her, to connect with her in this way. He does something extremely special for Kaya through opening her up to this world in a way that only stories can, and that immediately endeared me to Usopp. That's a lovely thing that he does for Kaya there, for someone who can't otherwise experience things. To tell her, to let her into these stories, to these insane, wacky worlds, these wacky adventures and journeys. It's a lovely thing. And this leads into a major theme, maybe the primary theme that in my opinion, that I got from this arc. And that is the beauty of stories, the beauty of exaggeratory narrative. The reason why me, you, anyone else reads, watches, plays video games, goes to the theater, reads books, whatever, experiences stories at all. The beauty of stories, the way that they can transform your day, transform your life, teach you things, immerse you, everything that stories can do from top to bottom, the beauty of all that is dwelt upon in great detail here. And with regards to that, one of my favorite lines in the series so far is something Kaya says about how Usopp gave her such joy through the stories he showed to her. I've got it right in front of me, so I'm just going to read it. She says to him, "Your stories were always filled with romantic and unbelievable things, but they were so much fun. I loved your lies." She knew very well that what he was saying, they were all tall tales, they were all exaggerations, they were all lies. But they were so much fun. They were so beautiful. They were so immersive. They whisked her away to this world that is so much more desirable than what she has to live with, and transformed her life in that way. I loved your lies. There's an honesty there. There's an awareness of the falsity and artificiality of that, but a simultaneous acknowledgement that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they were fake, if they were lies, because there was heart to them, there was soul to them, and the intent there was so wholesome and so beautiful that it really spoke to her, and it was really effective in transporting her. And immediately that line struck me. I just love that. That is what stories are all about. Yoshihiro Togashi, I love your lies. Kentaro Miura, I love your lies. Stories are lies. essentially. But the fact that they're made up doesn't make them any less beautiful, because they can be honest in other ways. They can teach you things, they can speak to you. I've harped on about this, you get my point. And then along with this in the introduction, another major character of this arc is Captain Kudo. I don't know, he goes by like 3 names. Captain Kudo, you know who I mean. The guy with the suit with the shit on his suit. This was hilarious because, we're introduced to him and he seems like a really nice guy. He's been in the care of Kaya for 3 years, I believe it was. He talks about their experiences very, very lovingly, very fondly. They seem to have a very nice bond. And then pretty quickly we're shown that he's got this plot to steal her inheritance and all this heinous evil stuff and to murder her, actually. It's straight up said between Django, who is hilarious, by the way, and Captain Kudo that, are we going to do Operation Murder Kaya? Like, it's straight up said like that. And it's so funny, because I just went, okay, so like that is so abrupt, upfront. There's no way that that's what it is. There's no way it's that simple. There's some sort of misunderstanding here. And people in chat were laughing at me, because obviously that isn't. When it comes to Captain Kudo, he is who he is after that initial warm introduction to him. He is who he is. He's very honest. He's very upfront with who he is, as the story presents him. He is a heinous villain who wants to get all this wealth, murder Princess Kaya initially, and the past 3 years were all a lie. It was all a lie. But it's so funny because continuously there were lines throughout. I can't remember the specifics right now, but there were lines throughout that I went, okay, there could be dual meaning to this. I'm sure there's layers to Captain Kudo. Famously, it's already famous in the Alexander Twitch lore, where something had stimulated someone to say, no, Captain Kudo's a nice guy. And I, in response, said, yeah, I'm sure he's a nice guy, completely honestly, because I just thought that Oda was pulling the wool over my eyes. I thought that Captain Kudo was a very layered, maybe misunderstood character in terms of motives, who had a bit of some redeeming qualities underneath that plan. Maybe there's some sort of misunderstanding, some layers that would paint him in a more positive light. I just kept looking for that, because I just, for some reason, assumed that he would be that layer, that he would be that sort of character. I kept reading way more into his lines than I should have, and people just kept laughing at me. It was hilarious. So yeah, I definitely fumbled on Captain Kudo. I totally misinterpreted the type of character he was, but nonetheless, I do think he's actually the best antagonist we have in the series so far. Not many, there aren't a ton, but I think he's the most effective one. I think his motives are very kind of unique and interesting. And as well, he contrasts and foils Usopp really effectively. Usopp, who benefits people's lives through lies. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but who the town actually, despite saying that they were annoyed with him, he definitely brightened up their day, brightened up their lives. His pirate crew, the kids, he brightened up their lives. He brightened up Kaya's life through his lies and his exaggerations and his tall tales. Whereas on the other hand, Kudo lied for 3 years straight for completely heinous reasons. Completely heinous. So that just shows the duality of these sorts of stories that you can tell to other people. Lies are not inherently bad things. They can be completely beautiful things if framed in a certain way, like a story. But a lie for selfish, terrible means is obviously very dark and very awful. And so I like that dynamic there between him and Usopp. But even aside from that, Kudo's really interesting. He has immense pride, an immense ego. He talks about how frustrated he was that he had to bow down to Kaya and be subservient towards her, which tells you all about his ego. But then nonetheless, his motivations in the end were to quietly let his name die. Let the name of Captain Kudo die, let his legacy as a pirate just completely go away, fake his own death, and then live off the wealth that he gets through these operations, in solitude with a new name, just abandoning all that, abandoning all the shiny, loud glory, putting his name to bed, getting off the sea, and just living this quiet life. And that's a really interesting motive to me. That's not what I expected. And it makes him more than a mustache twirler through the way he foils with Usopp, through the way he thematically works as an antithesis to this idea of stories, and his motives, they're just interesting. But yeah, the arc progresses. We get quite a bit of stuff with Django, who, like I said, is absolutely hilarious. his walking backward stick, gotta love it. The Meow Band brothers, whatever, they are what they are. I didn't really care about them much. But then there were also some notes that harken back to the themes of previous arcs. Oda seems to like planting seeds of themes that are then carried out in multiple ways. The theme of treasure, whatever it may be, protecting your treasure that I talked about in the first video, he didn't just stop talking about it completely just because Orangetown ended, That's carried through here as well. I can't remember the exact line, but Usopp talks about how he doesn't want money, he doesn't want gems or treasure or whatever, or materialistic things. What he wants more than anything is to protect his village. I alluded to this earlier. Like I said, that's why Zoro immediately sort of adheres himself to him, because he's the same way. This crew is just a bunch of kindred spirits, and Usopp's right there with them, valuing this village, valuing this home and the people he wants to protect as his treasure, and doing what he must. Even if he is not a great fighter, even if he's a bit of a coward, he's scared of things, if he's a liar, whatever, regardless of that all, he will fight tooth and nail, bleeding from his face, to protect that, because he just loves it. He loves everything, he loves it all so much. And that is what Luffy and Zoro respond to, and Nami as well in subtle ways. We talked about Zoro already, but Luffy looks at that and he goes, you know what? Yeah, someone like this, I can go to bat for them. I can fight to the death for them. Luffy, after hearing from Usopp about his conviction, is fully willing to kill for him. He's fully willing to kill others for him and fight for Usopp if need be, despite just meeting him, because he has this intuition. He makes a judgment of people very, very quickly. There comes to a point where once he learns enough about them, he goes, okay, yep, I want you on my crew, or I don't want you on my crew, or I respect you, or I don't respect you, or whatever. Luffy has some sort of internal processes in his mind that, he gets information, and then bam, once he reaches a certain threshold, he makes a judgment about someone. When it comes to Usopp, he very much realized that, yes, this is someone worthy of respect, this is someone who I should protect, this is someone who deserves to have his dreams fulfilled, because he will fight for what he loves just as much as I will. And there's a situation throughout where people are insulting Luffy or kind of clowning on him or something like that, but then they turn their attention towards Usopp, and that's when he decides to get really serious. And that harkens back to what Shank did in Chapter 1, where he said, you can make fun of me all you want, you can disrespect me all you want, do not say anything about my friends, or I will go to bat for them. That's clearly an idea that's taken root in Luffy as well, that's passed down to Luffy as well, sort of his legacy in a way, Shanks' legacy. And Luffy takes it in, he ingratiates it within him, and integrates it with his ideas about conviction, about protection of one's treasure, of valuing one's treasure, of honesty, of resolve, of all those things we've talked about before, and there's bits and pieces and they all merge together to form his ideals. Definitely influenced by Shanks, but also the majority of which is ideals that he's come upon naturally, very specific to Luffy, that he shares with other people nonetheless. And so yeah, Luffy is fully willing to fight for Usopp, which leads me into something very interesting. I had been told to read the SBS, the question and answer with Oda, whatever those things are called, the questions in the back of each chapter. Many chapters had this question and answer section. I was told to read that just for some interesting tidbits. I did. They were generally really entertaining, pretty fun, kind of funny. But there was one that stuck out to me because it completely informs us about some of the approaches taken with characterization, and this arc in particular, something that Luffy says. There was a question in this SBS corner where someone asked, why doesn't Luffy kill people? Does he have some sort of code against killing? And Oda basically answered, to Luffy, defeating someone's beliefs and ideals and crushing their resolve, ideological defeat basically, is as bad or even worse than death to Luffy. That's what he believes. And so death, the physical death, is almost secondary. Luffy crushes someone's resolve and ideals and beliefs, and he goes, that is worse than death. So it's like, why even kill them? Why even kill them physically? They're already dead. And that is so interesting to me because just as a concept, it's raw, it's cool, it's interesting. It's interesting thought food. But this informs us about Luffy a great deal because I'm reading in now, chapter 36, Kudo's asking him, why are you sticking your neck out for this village? Why are you fighting for them? Luffy says, because there's someone in this village I don't want you to kill. speaking of Usopp. And then Kudo says, okay, I understand. How simple, which is very true. Luffy is quite a simple person, in a good way. This is not me slandering Luffy or criticizing his character at all. I love his simplicity. And then Kudo says, how simple. Is it enough to die for? To which Luffy says, it's good enough for me. And then he says, but I'm not going to get killed. Kudo says, something so small. You respect this person and you don't want them to die, so you're willing to potentially die yourself. That is such a trifle. That's so insignificant. You're willing to die for that? And Luffy says, it's good enough for me to die for. So Luffy clearly has a lower threshold for what he's willing to risk his life for others, because of this idea. Ideological death of your resolve, death of your beliefs, is worse than physical death. And so Luffy is willing to put his life on the line for things that most people wouldn't put their life on the line for, because that's how he conceptualizes life in general, your legacy. It is in your philosophies and what you believe in where your identity is and where your true value as a person lies, not in your physical life. That is just extremely thought-provoking, really interesting for Luffy, and I think that lays lots of seeds for interesting foundations down the line for what he's willing to do for maybe friends, maybe others. Luffy is definitely not stingy with what he's willing to put his life on the line for. And a lot of it has basis in his confidence, in his abilities, in his combat, in his powers. But it's also just because he views life in this way. It's extremely kind of profound and deep. People were telling me that Syrup Village was kind of shallow. What do you mean? I'm just joking around, but it's really interesting, and to me that elevated Luffy quite a lot. He clearly embodies this idea, and clearly he says quite clearly that it doesn't take much for him to sacrifice his life. All it takes is for him to respect someone, and he is willing to put his life on the line for them. Because I would like to think that in hypothetical terms, even if Luffy were to die in one of these battles, what he stood for through his last breaths would live on, would be everlasting, would be evergreen. And that's more important than whether or not he's actually breathing. That's just the idea I get here. And it plays into that idea of this quest for the One Piece. Maybe at the end of it, it won't be all that it's chalked up to be. Maybe it'll be gone. We talked about that when talking about Gaimon's chapter with chapter 22. But Luffy is very much living in the present. He doesn't really care about what happens to him down the line, or maybe even what happens to his life, if what he's fighting for matters to him in the present. Hopefully I'm getting my thoughts across well. Essentially, Luffy is already a great main character. Like I said, very simple, but very effective, very powerful, very profound in a lot of ways. And Syrup Village elevated him quite a bit. Now, another interesting detail is we get a bit of a backstory for Captain Kudo down the line that substantiates him a bit more, where we learn about the motives that he has that I was talking about earlier. And we see that Kudo encountered Captain Morgan. He simulated through manipulating memories, through hypnosis, through Django's power, simulated a scenario where it seemed as if Captain Morgan captured, quote-unquote, Captain Kudo, who was just a person who was hypnotized into believing that he was Captain Kudo, not actually him. Captain Morgan was also hypnotized for this, so all parties believed that Captain Kudo was this random person, random pirate, and that he was captured and that Captain Morgan did it. Captain Morgan is of a very high rank. We saw this in the previous arcs. This explains why. Because he captured the famed Captain Kudo. Captured. It's just really cool. That didn't need to be there, this backstory here, but it explains why Captain Morgan is in this lofty position, this lofty status, this rank, and just fleshes out the world and enriches the world and adds a nice bit of interconnectedness through two minor antagonists who I didn't think had anything to do with one another, but whose pasts intertwined in this way that makes them richer characters as a result, and makes the world feel richer and fuller as a result. It's a little touch, this backstory, but little touches like that go a long way. And if Oda continues to do this sort of interconnectedness throughout the setting, through the characters and their backstories and how they intertwine, I will definitely keep paying attention to that, keep appreciating that. It'll add up and be greater than the sum of its parts, and it will definitely be felt. It'll make this story feel very rich, very three-dimensional. Wow, this video is definitely going to be longer than the first one, huh? Whatever, I'm having fun. And then, so yeah, we head towards the climax of Syrup Village, and then this is where we have Kudo's motivation shown to us. I talked about it earlier, like I said, but then the way it contrasts with Luffy is very interesting, because Luffy straight up says, after hearing about Kudo's motivations, that he's not a real pirate. This isn't a real, genuine pirate in front of me, because someone whose motivation is to give up his name, to quit the sea, for his legacy to fade away, and for him to just live off of wealth gained through heinous means in some other place, that is totally antithetical to what Luffy thinks piracy is. Piracy is larger than life. Piracy isn't casting away your name, it's your name being up in lights, metaphorically, making a name for yourself through your exploits and adventures and journeys. So he looks at what Kudo's motivations are and he says, this guy is not a pirate. And so I think that's really interesting. It puts a nice contrast between Luffy and between Kudo, and what they both believe piracy should be and what it should stand for. And it carries on that backstory chapter that was between Shanks and Buggy, where they both compared and contrasted what they thought that piracy really meant. It carries forward that theme into this, as it compares and contrasts different ideas of piracy. I can't imagine that Oda is going to stop here with tackling what different characters think piracy entails, because there's just so much potential there, and the seeds were sown through that Shanks and Buggy chapter in Orange Town, so it would be a shame if he didn't use that foundation to its greatest potential. I'm quite sure that different ideas of what piracy entails will definitely be tackled later on as well, and they were tackled very interestingly here. But yeah, just the way it indirectly characterizes Luffy, or directly rather, through him just saying, you're not a pirate. You're antithetical to what a pirate is, fading away, your name dying. That just shows you, through contrast, what Luffy is all about, that he abhors that idea, that it's almost a disgrace to him. But yeah, amidst a lot of fighting, which I don't have much to talk about, I don't have much to say about the art. It's mostly just a lot of the things I was talking about before, the use of contrast with the simple expressions compared to the great expressiveness. It's done really well. I'm not going to repeat myself from what I said in the first video, but if my opinions on the art changes down the line, don't worry, I'll definitely draw attention to things, just I don't have anything to say about it here. Ultimately, the foes are defeated, and we get to the conclusion of the arc, and the conclusion of Usopp's introduction. Usopp's the star of this arc, as far as I'm concerned. I think that's pretty self-evident, and prior to the last 3 or 4 chapters of this arc, I was like, okay, damn, like, this is a character I can buy into, this is an effective introduction, I like him. But I kept getting this feeling that there was a bit more to come from him. There was a great effective start in the first few chapters of this arc, and then he kind of stalled a little bit in the middle, and then momentum picks up in the last few as it gets towards the climax and beyond. At the end of the day, Usopp isn't this great warrior like Zoro. He isn't a great thief like Nami. He doesn't have powers and this almost inhuman resolve in the way that Luffy does. He's very human. He's the most human. He's the closest thing to an everyman, I would say, Usopp so far, of the main cast. He fears danger. He's scared. He can't fight very well. He tells lies. He's flawed. People essentially calls him the boy who cried wolf because of the way in which he would consistently lie. We'll get to that in a second. Good God, what Oda did with that. But nonetheless, in spite of his weaknesses and drawbacks and flaws, he does his very best to stand up for what he believes in and protect his treasures, in spite of all that. And that makes his specific brand of bravery and courage a bit more admirable to me than anyone else's. And so that was proof throughout the arc. Honor is a big deal in One Piece, it seems like. So what he does is, near the climax, he gives his pirate kids, Onion and Cabbage and Carrot, or whatever their names are, he gives them an excuse to run away through saying, take Kaya to safety. Kaya, who had gotten out of bed and who had walked all the way across the damn village to learn the truth from Kudo. She was in danger's way, so Usopp says to them, your job as my crew, take her to safety. Very clever. He's very smart here because, as I think Zoro says, he gives them an honorable reason to flee, to get them out of harm's way, through protecting Kaya. And so a lot of Usopp's value as a person comes in his sentiment, in his courage in spite of his weakness, and through the interesting ways in which he navigates the honor and ideals of a pirate and the solutions he can get, like that solution. But even at this part, I was going, okay, so I think Usopp fits in comfortably into my top 5. He's probably my 5th favorite character. But the last couple of chapters shot him right up to number 3. Spoiler alert for my top 5, which I will do in every one of these videos. But my god, what the last couple of chapters do for him, it is insanity. Firstly, in chapter 40, he says goodbye to his crew because he wants to take on the world, make a life for himself. And so he is disbanding. He decides to disband his pirate crew, his little kids. I don't have much to say about them, like I kind of alluded to earlier by not really remembering their names, but I think they were a nice way of indirectly characterizing and contributing to and substantiating Usopp, because their role here alone does so much for him. This was his crew. This was his mini crew on this island. And we get flashbacks to, he would point out like a lizard or a salamander and go, oh, it's the mighty dragon, we have to capture the dragon. And then they would see like a dog or something. He'd go, it's Cerberus, pursue Cerberus. And he'd get these little kids he'd capture their imagination and transport them to these worlds through these beautiful lies, the beauty of storytelling. And naturally, they adhered themselves to him. They believed in him. They were his crew. These days that may have otherwise been doldrums for Kaya, for these kids, for the townsfolk, he brightened their lives. And the disbanding of their crew, I gotta admit, it got to me a little bit. I'm looking at the spread now. It's all 3 of the kids crying, snot coming from their noses, tears pouring down their faces, as Usopp says, I hereby declare Usopp's pirate crew disbanded. And he's bawling as well. That all just really hit really nicely for me, and I went, damn, maybe I like him more than I thought I did. Then we have chapter 41. Holy shit. For context, in the stream, I'm gonna actually try to splice in a little clip of my read-through, hopefully I can find it, where I got to the crux of, in the climax of chapter 41, which was one of the best chapters, if not the best chapter, maybe aside from chapter 1 so far. Because, for context, I listened to music that's tonally appropriate for One Piece, but I listen to music nonetheless as I go through this. I don't just read in silence. In this moment, the Fellowship theme from Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, was playing, and that was so appropriate. It was insane. It elevated my experience a ton, and it made me a bit teary-eyed, because we have Nami, Zoro, and Luffy saying, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here. We have Usopp getting ready to leave as well. They're presented with a ship, the Merry-Go, something like that. And then Usopp is about to disband, not thinking that he's part of their crew. And I love Luffy just matter-of-factly says, you're part of the crew now. You're with us. Aren't you coming with us? And you can tell how much it means to Usopp to be part of this, to be included in this. And he sets off with them. Then we go back to Mary, who I didn't describe before, but was a solid enough minor character, to Mary and Kaya. And they're talking about Usopp, about his backstory. And we get the context behind why he did what he did. We learn that Usopp's father went off to sea when he was just a little boy, and at the same time his mother was ill. She had taken ill, she was bedridden. Drawing a bit of a parallel with Kaya, maybe part of the reason why he wanted so much to shower her life with color and beauty and brilliance, and to help her out. Maybe there was a bit of a connection he made with his mother because of that, but also just because he's a kind person, obviously. Nonetheless, his father went out to sea, he never came back, and his mother was mortally sick in bed. And so Usopp would look out for his father's return as his mother laid in bed, and he would come back and say, "Father's back, father's ship's back, I saw his ship, and he's gonna take us out to sea," because he said, when you get better, we'll go out to sea together. He's come back for his mom. He would tell his mom these things, and his mom would say, don't be silly. I know your father's long gone. Your father's not coming back. You need to stop dreaming. You need to stop dreaming these foolish dreams and see reality for what it is. And she presented that right to him, right to his face. And Usopp says, I don't care if I'm silly. Don't talk about dying. I want to keep dreaming. I'm the son of a pirate. He would exaggerate and dream about these far-off realities that were so idealistic and romantic because the alternative, dwelling in misery, is just not something he could bring himself to do. He had to look at life with this positive lens. And so maybe in misery, maybe his mind snapped a little bit and he was in denial and just saying, I don't care if I'm silly. I'm going to keep dreaming of dad coming back, of father coming back. Father will come back. I don't care what you say. I'm the son of a pirate. I'm going to keep on dreaming. And Mary says that after his mom passed, perhaps in despair, he'd continuously talk about how the pirates were coming back. He would dream for his father to come back and carry him off the coast into some far-off land. He would continuously dream. He was a dreamer. And so the crux of why he'd continuously tell these tall tales, the crux of why he would bring this light into these people's lives through this imagination, to Kaya, to his crew, is to dream. Is to continuously dream through these stories, through these beautiful lies. You know, they may not be true, but if there's a possibility, I can dream for it. And so that being recontextualized in that way, that being the crux of why he goes throughout the village and says these things, the pirates are coming, combine that with the fact that his absence is felt so strongly. He leaves, and people throughout the village are going, man, it's so weird without having that liar, that boy who cried wolf around. He was like my alarm clock. It's kind of lonely and quiet without him. But then his legacy being the kids, who would then go and say, the pirates are coming. They would carry on his torch for him and continue his beautiful lies, continue those dreams in Syrup Village. It's beautiful, it's poetic. And then in the midst of all that, we have the new crew with a new member. Usopp, Nami, Luffy, and Zoro. Cheers, clanking glasses. All this was happening as the Fellowship song was swelling, and I was kind of losing it. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Like Kaya says, living in this village, having lost both his parents, I suppose he had to create his own hope. That's what Usopp is about. That's the core of Usopp, creating his own hope, dreaming through these beautiful lies, these beautiful stories, helping others to dream, benefiting their lives. It's so beautiful. And then with that, Usopp is immediately a favorite character of mine in the story, immediately top 3, and yeah, he was great. Syrup Village is so wonderful for Usopp. Kaya's a very solid character too. I've talked about her a little bit. I like all that she brings to the table. I like what she does in helping shine a light on Usopp, but she's also just very sympathetic and likable, and she has a resolve of her own, a resolve to protect what she values as well. She's a very solid character, and I liked her quite a bit. And then, like I said, Kudo was a very effective antagonist, I thought. And then Luffy as well, lots of great stuff done for him, but Usopp was the star here. And then so with that, I think that's about all I have to say about the arc. My top 5 characters updated after 41 chapters would be number 5, Nami. Like I said, nice progression for her this arc. Number 4, Zoro. Lots of rawness for him. He continues to be really cool, really badass. He continues to protect in a really effective way. Really like Zoro a lot. Number 3, Usopp. Shot right up there. And then number 2, he's made up a lot of ground and he is just behind Shanks, but he's still not quite number 1, but I think by the time my next video comes around, he will be number 1. But number 2, Luffy, elevated a lot, and number 1, Shanks. That is my top 5. Shanks, Luffy, Usopp, Zoro, Nami. I'm pretty happy with that right now. We'll see how it progresses. We'll see if eventually I have to make a top 10. But yeah, that's Syrup Village. That is about all I have to say about it. Imagine if I had made a video about this and the next arc. That would have been quite a lot. That would have been too much. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Syrup Village. I hope that maybe it made you realize something new about Syrup Village. Or if not, I hope it was just an enjoyable watch to take a trip down memory lane for all of you who are re-experiencing the series through my experience of the series. This was super solid. My favorite arc so far. A really strong 7, maybe even a really light 8. But yeah, I think that's all I've got to say for this video. So once again, if you would like to join in the live experience and share some bits of insight live with me as I read these chapters, you can follow me on Twitch, where every Sunday, along with anime reactions, but after the anime reactions, I will be streaming at least a handful of One Piece chapters, along with random days here and there like I talked about before. Updates for that will be on my Twitter. So if you would like to do that, you're more than welcome to follow me on Twitch. If you would like early access to the next chapter review on Patreon right now, it's available. It's available in the description and the pinned comment for $5 patrons, if you're interested in that. And again, if you would like your comment to be highlighted in the next video, or I guess because Patreon has early access, it'll be in 2 videos. That's how it'll have to be. So if you would like your comment to be highlighted and maybe read by me or reacted to by me, just use the hashtag AJPeace. Yeah, we're sticking with that one. in your comment, and it could be selected, it could be highlighted in that video. Regardless, I look forward to reading more of the comments and seeing more insight. You guys definitely didn't let me down the first time around, and I'm looking forward to seeing more enthusiasm and more little tidbits and more just general great energy. All that aside, thank you very much for watching and for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one, as I continue my One Piece journey. Many thanks for watching.